Welcome to the Fire Time Podcast, where it's never hot enough, slow is fast, and the way to win is to make it so stupidly easy to buy from you that there's no excuse not to. I'm your host, Tim Reed. And once again, I'm so excited to be here today. Welcome to the Fire Time Podcast. And hey, we are here for another episode, and in particular, I'm really pumped about today's conversation because it is with the marketing legend, April Sunshine Hawkins. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast this season, then you know we've been talking a lot about messaging and marketing. In particular, last week's episode with my friend Robert Schnell was one that we recorded live in Nashville after attending a Donald Miller Storybrand marketing conference. And last week's episode was all about some of the basics of marketing that we have to understand if we want it to be effective. Well, to tag on to that conversation, I wanted to talk with April Sunshine Hawkins, who is actually one of the leaders and facilitators at that very workshop. And today's episode is one that goes into all kinds of detail about how messaging and marketing works. If you're in a position at your company where you're thinking like, why aren't our advertisements more effective? Or how do we communicate with people in a way that actually draws a response? That's exactly what today is about. Now, you'll hear it in the conversation, but April worked with Donald Miller for years. She's literally traveled all over the world teaching marketing workshops for companies to help them clarify their messaging so that customers can understand the value that they offer. And there's so many things in this conversation that are just important to understand. We go through a framework that I want to give a little bit of context to called the PEACE framework, P-E-A-C-E. And this was put out by the team at Storybrand, and it was a big focus of the workshop that I was recently at in Nashville. And essentially, the framework comes down to this. If you want to create a message that is effective and that engages people to listen, you want to build a soundbite statement for the letters P-E-A-C-E. P is problem. What is the customer's problem? You want to create a soundbite statement for that. E is empathy. How can you show empathy to the customer's situation? A, answer. What is the answer to their problem that you can offer them? C, change. What is the change that will occur or that they will experience after using your product or coming into contact with your business? And E, end result. We want to create a sound bite for each one of those, and that's how we start to create effective messaging. So I wanted to give that context because me and April jump in and start talking about it, and this is the framework that we're referencing. And I know for myself, like putting this into play is very, very powerful. Now, this conversation goes a lot of different directions. We start out with some of the nuts and bolts of what makes effective marketing. We get into the PEACE framework, but by the end of it, we really spend some time talking about how fear and ego actually ties itself into our marketing messaging. And if we're not aware of some of our insecurities and our fears, it's actually going to affect deeply the way that we communicate and relate to others. So there is a ton of value in this conversation. You know, like I said, April is a legend in the marketing space. For anyone who follows Storybrand, Donald Miller, the Marketing Made Simple podcast, you know who she is. But I think that there's something really special in this conversation, and I hope it's something you enjoy. Now, as always, we'll circle back at the end and I'll share a few parting thoughts. But for now, I hope you enjoy this conversation with April Sunshine Hawkins. Joining me from Nashville, Tennessee is a curator of clarity. I'm here with April Sunshine Hawkins. April, thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, Tim, I am thrilled. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking forward to this for a while because we met about 8 years ago at a Storybrand conference in Seattle. And ever since then, like as I've followed the work that you've done with you hosting the Marketing Made Simple podcast and, you know, seeing you recently in Nashville as well at another like Donald Miller Storybrand workshop, it's just really clear to me that like you deeply understand how messaging and communication works, but you also really care about the people that that you're helping craft the message and the people that the message is going to. And I think that the combination of all those things is rare. So super excited you're here on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. I'm like touching my heart because that like makes my heart so happy that you see the care, because that is really my intention. I just want to show up. I want to serve people, and I want them to walk away feeling like, okay, this thing that I came up with, this is what I've been searching for. I've been looking for this kind of clarity in my life.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that like if we look around in the world, like there is a lot of bad marketing that's out there. There's a lot of marketing that's used for manipulation. There's a lot of marketing that is based on fear. And that's not what we want to do, right? We want to be able to tell true stories that actually win in life and in the marketplace, that like compel people to better decisions about things that will make their lives and the lives around them better. So I think this is why it's so important. But marketing is one of these things that's kind of nebulous, right? There's that old adage like attributed to Henry Ford of like 50% of my marketing works. I just don't know which 50%. And I think that kind of gets away from the purpose, which is really like when we craft a message, we're trying to inspire someone to think about things differently, or to think about things in a way that is clearer so they can take action in a way that makes their life better. And so I want to jump into all this, but could you first just give us like a brief history of just your foray into the marketing world and where it's taken you?
Oh, like so many people, I started out, 15 years ago, throwing marketing spaghetti against the wall. I was doing social media and websites for people and being like, I don't know, is this right? Like, is this it? And then I heard Donald Miller and JJ on the original Building a Storybrand podcast, which I bet that you also listen to.
Oh, yeah.
And whenever they were talking, I was like, ding, this makes so much sense. And I was an elementary school teacher for 7 years before my burnout, which so many elementary school teachers do. That's why I was doing the social media and the websites.
Yeah.
And so when I heard that, I was like, oh, I need to go there. I need to learn this at a higher level. I want to teach this to people. I want to empower people with this, because this is the thing that I feel like I've been missing. And like you said, what I loved about it was it didn't feel manipulative. It felt like, oh, I can provide empathy on behalf of the person that's reading this website or consuming this social media post. And it doesn't have to feel slimy or slicky or anything like that. And it really is all about them, the person on the other side of the screen that's reading it, that is going through whatever it is they're going through. And oh my goodness, here we are, however many years later. And I'm just so grateful to have this framework anytime I'm sitting down myself to write something or to sit down with someone else. We've got a blinking cursor in front of us. And it's like, well, where do we start? This Storybrand framework has been crucial and essential for me.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. And I mean, you're downplaying this, but like you were the host of the Marketing Made Simple podcast, or co-host of it with JJ Peterson, huge podcast that helped a ton of people. You have gone like all over the world being hired by companies, right? To facilitate workshops where people are really trying to figure this out. And I think what you said is so true. Like for those of you not familiar, I reference it pretty frequently, but Donald Miller wrote this book back in 2017, I believe, Building a Storybrand. And I remember at the time listening to those original podcasts and reading that book, and it did a combination of things. It confirmed things I already knew worked, but I wasn't quite sure why, right? It brought clarity to like, why does it resonate when I do this? And other things where it's like, oh, wait a minute, it doesn't work when I'm doing this, and now I know why. So that was super helpful. And I'll actually say that like to this day, I actually go back to those first 7-8 episodes of the original Storybrand podcast. I go back to them about once a year or so, just as a reminder of keeping myself grounded. But we're getting theoretical here. Let's talk really practically. So if we want to have effective marketing, let's first talk about what kind of marketing is ineffective. So like, what are some telltale signs of marketing that is just not going to work or going to resonate in our world today?
Well, so many people they are experts at what they do. And it is so difficult for them to like reel in all of the information that they know and to put themselves in the position of someone who is at the starting line, who really is just experiencing the problem, but doesn't have any of the know-how, hasn't, gotten an engineering degree or whatever it's taken in order to figure out the ins and outs. And so what a lot of people do is they'll hand too much information to somebody right out the gate. And Dawn has been calling this also cognitive load. We're just like handing people all this heavy information that may not even be conversational. Like somebody might not say it out loud. It would be the way that the person that knows everything knows how to say it now. But the other person on the other side of the screen is going, I don't really know. I don't really know what this means. And anytime our mind is confused at all, it says no, or it says, maybe I'll figure that out later. And then it's off to somewhere else. And it is going to try to find somebody who is able to connect with them, say exactly what they're experiencing on the nose is. And then, that is really what I want people to watch out for is how heavy is the cognitive load of what you are saying? Because any chance that you have to lower that cognitive load, the more people are likely to recognize themselves in the story and engage.
Yeah, there's so much there. I mean, again, speaking like from the fireplace industry, we have so much insider jargon that we just yak at people on websites and in brochures and stuff. We talk about, hey, this is 40,000 BTUs an hour. And it's like, well, great. Like, what's a BTU? Well, don't worry about that. There's 40,000 of them. This is a zero clearance fireplace with direct vent termination, and it uses an IPI ignition system. And it's like, as fireplace nerds, of course we know what this is, but it's like when we go to the doctor doesn't give us the name of like every bone in the human body and the name of all the muscle endings and the theory of how the doctor doesn't do that. The doctor gives us what we need at the level we can understand to solve our problem.
And anytime we go to the doctor, a lot of us are just looking to be listened to. And for that doctor to be like, you're not crazy. Yeah. We're going to work together to try to get to the bottom of whatever you're experiencing. That's what we want in a really great guide. We do want their expertise, but we also want them to be on our side and really listen and get us at a high level.
100%. We talk about this quite a bit on the show, but I'd love to hear you articulate it about this idea of not being the hero. Our job is to be the advisors, to be the guide, to come alongside. And as soon as we become the hero in marketing, we lose. Why is that? And how can we position ourselves as the guide?
Yeah, everybody wakes up every single day and they are the hero of their own story. And so anytime that we might be pointing at ourselves and going, hey, we're here to help save your day. People are like, what do you mean? Like, I'm the hero of my story. I'm the one who's going to make the decisions that help drive my plot forward in my life. And I don't need you to come rescue me. That's not what I'm looking for here. I'm not looking for a rescuer, but I am looking for somebody who can help me, somebody who can guide me. And so when we start pointing at them and getting them to pay attention to the problem that they are experiencing and naming it so accurately that they're like, oh, this person gets it. They completely understand what I am going through. We provide empathy towards that as the guide. And then we can provide and sprinkle in some competency, like why we are great at solving this problem and how it works, like how our solution actually does solve this issue. But we cannot start there. That's almost where every single business starts. They start by just being like,
we do this. 1975.
Yeah, we do this, we do that. Well, that's great. How is that relevant to me? And so anytime we're writing things, I'm constantly hoping that people will write you statements.
Yeah.
You're experiencing this. You are feeling this. You will gain the benefit. Like if you walk through this process, you. And so many people are constantly using the word we. We do this, we do that, and just that simple, like anytime I write the word we, I'm like, is it appropriate to use here?
Yeah.
Or can I flip it to a you statement of some kind? Because that really is what resonates with people.
I love that. My friend Tim Rethlick says you can't go we all over your customer. You can't do
true.
it. Right? It's so true. And it's like, it's such a subtle shift, right? Of just going back to like, if the first thing on your website is like family owned business since, 1953, you just want to ask, who's the hero of that story? It's not the customer. They're not mentioned once. Nothing to do with them. It's the business, which immediately starts to turn off the customer. Versus like, what would be a way to say, let's say you're a plumber and you have been in business since 1953. How could you shift that statement of, family owned since 1953? How could you shift that to be a guide statement versus a hero statement?
Well, I mean, we've been serving customers just like you.
There you go.
For however many years, it's just, it's so subtle. But again, it makes a huge difference in somebody feeling like they are talking to me. They're not talking about them. They're talking to me.
Yeah. And I think what you said is really good, like in the sense of like how a relationship unfolds. When you go to a website, when you see a TV ad or a Facebook ad, whatever it is, it's like stages of a relationship. On the first date, there's just topics you just don't get into until you're a little bit deeper in the relationship. And even like, we've been around since 1975. It's like, well, okay, there might be a time and place for that later in the conversation. But like, if my house is freezing cold and I go to a fireplace website, I am not thinking, boy, I'm looking for someone that started in 1975.
Right.
I want to have, picture of a happy family sitting in front of a fireplace. And I want some kind of tagline that says, never be cold in a power outage again, or something like that. Like you don't have to be, you don't have to be without heat in the coldest days of the winter, something that is, like you said, going to their problem.
That's right. Exactly. It's so key and it's so wonderful to do the switch. Like even in some of the therapy sessions that I've done, there's been a moment where I'm sitting in a chair and then there's an empty chair across from me that's representing someone else. And then they go, okay, what do you want to say to this person? Now switch roles. And that exercise is really helpful in our brains to do, like physically. Like, how can I turn my computer around, sit in a different chair that's labeled customer? Now, let me think about, you could even use a name of someone who you've just done business with. Maybe it's a person named Susie. And so you go, okay, I'm going to label this chair Susie. I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to sit in the chair as Susie. And I'm going to read through this website and go, okay, does this apply to her? If she is reading this, is this going to resonate with her? And if it does, ding, 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 you've done it. You've nailed what you're after here.
Yeah. And I think that this speaks to, I think, a lot of fear that people have. And I want to talk about this later. But I think that a lot of people in marketing or a lot of executives in companies or leaders in business are afraid if they make their message too narrow, if they only make it for Susie, they're going to alienate so many people because we also do this and we also do this. And, well, there's other people that could benefit from our product too. And I think that the adage, like a message for everyone is a message for no one, is so absolutely true. Why should people not be afraid of crafting that message just for Susie?
Oh my gosh. Because then the Susies of the world, there's plenty of them. They will go, oh, I'm in the exact right spot. And there are so many other people that will come along. But if you say, we are going to serve this specific client, then all of your messaging sounds authentic.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was built for someone. And then, yes, I get it. Like, we are nervous. We are fearful that we're going to miss out on a ton of business because we're going so narrow. But we've got to get over to that abundance mindset. We've got to get over to the fact that, oh no, there are so many Susies. And if we're calling out to her, she is going, yep, I'm in the exact right place. These people are my guide. And there are going to be so many others that come along with that. We just have to take a deep breath and also give things a try. I think that's the other thing that gets in people's way when they're fearful of something like that is let's try it out. Because if you're playing too general, it's boring. Like people are just like, oh, I guess this is kind of for me.
Yeah.
But that's why music has so many different genres, because people are using the same chords on the guitar and the piano to play the music, but we're making it sound different and we're calling out to people so that we welcome them into our style, our way of doing things and the music that they like. And so once they hear it, they're like, oh, this is for me. These people are my kind of people.
100%. And I mean, your comment about Susie is so true. Like, there's a lot more Susies than you think. I mean, I'm thinking about Seth Godin. He says the key to marketing is to understand the phrase, people like us do things like this, right? People like Susie do things like Susie. And Susie has a bunch of other Susies within her network that she will spread the word about if it actually solves a problem. So I'd love to get really practical and talk about the peace framework. So a couple months ago, I was in Nashville. We reconnected a little bit there. And Donald Miller was hosting a workshop to go through the Storybrand peace framework. And I found this to be so helpful. I mean, literally 15 minutes before this call, I was putting together a peace framework for a proposal that I'm going to send out later today. Last night, I had 2 other ones for 2 classes that I'm going to be teaching coming up at a conference. So I found this to be very, very practical and helpful. Why don't you walk through it? Because if you want to have marketing that really captures people and you want it to be repeatable, I think the peace framework is where you start.
Oh, I could not agree more. And it is just a streamlined version of the Storybrand framework. So if you're like Tim and I and you've listened to the podcast from the very beginning, this is so similar. It's just really 5 pieces.
Yeah.
So I also really love that Dawn talks about this peace framework like stair steps up to your business.
Yeah.
So each piece of this framework, I want you to imagine it's like getting somebody to step on the first step. Like when you name the problem, which is the P in the peace framework, PEACE, problem, once you name that problem, somebody is going, yep, that's me. I'm going to step on that first step. It's piquing my curiosity. Because again, when we name someone's actual problem with words that they're like, oh yeah, that's me, we're calling them to pay attention to it, and we're calling them to step on that first step up to our business front. Then that next step is to provide empathy to exactly what they are going through. And as a great guide, that's what we're going to do. It's like our hero is in a hole. Yeah. They're experiencing this problem. We're up top. We're not down in the hole with them. And we're looking down into the hole and we're like, oh man, we get how hard this is. And sometimes it's just as simple as saying that. We understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
And that's really all you have to say for somebody to go, thank you. You're not just talking at me, you're connecting with me on a heart level. Mm-hmm. And now that I am, hearing that you are empathetic to my plight in the world, then it's time to give them the answer. Now, this is not a rescue move. It's just, we know the way out of here.
Yeah.
Let us tell you about it. And then you can choose it for yourself. And so the guide throws down a rope into the hole and they go, this is the way out. Here's how it works. And at this point, you can break down the plan. This is exactly
the steps of doing business with you.
Exactly. So now we've got the answer. So we're at PEAC is for change. Change is if they decide to go through the motions of rescuing themselves and taking this answer that you've provided them, once they get to the top and they're standing next to you, they're going to be like, oh, wow, this has changed me, not just taken my problem away, but internally I get to change. Because people don't always buy products and services in order to solve the problem that's happening externally to them. They do it so that the discomfort inside of them will go away.
Yeah.
And so whenever we are changed, we go, oh my gosh, now I get to be, and then fill in the aspirational identity word that goes right there. Yeah. And when we name that change and we help call it out, people can kind of see themselves having that in their life. And then the final step, the E on the staircase at the end, is the end result. Where do we want them to go? Like, what is their future going to be like? And if we can cast that vision, they can take themselves there into the future. They can zoom themselves there in their imagination and go, yep, that is exactly where I want to head. And I will do what needs to be done in order to take this answer and get rid of this problem finally for good.
That's really good. Yeah, this framework is powerful because, it allows you to create these snippets. Don calls them sound bites, right? Like you have a sound bite for P, it's your problem. You have a sound bite for E, for A, for C, for E. And these sound bites can be applied like chords on a guitar. Like you could put, maybe your website header is the problem. Maybe you scroll down a little bit and you get empathy. Maybe you have a brochure that has change and end result. Like there's a lot of ways that you can play this, but what I found it does is it really does provide a path where you can say, what am I trying to say, right? So again, I use like websites as an example because it's so common, and this is something like anybody listening now, you could apply the Peace Framework on your website today for $0, and it would transform your website. Like you will get more leads, you'll have more people on your site for longer. I'm just thinking in the fireplace sense, like, okay, pick a problem. Well, fireplaces make things warm. So if like your problem statement might be, are you tired of being freezing cold when the power goes out? Okay, there's a problem. Now we can have an empathy statement. And empathy could be like, no family should be insecure on the coldest winter days. And then we could have an answer statement. The answer would be, get a fireplace to stay warm and save money. And then the change could be, never worry about being cold again. And then the end result would be, save money on your heating bill for years to come. Like that's an example of like each one of those is a soundbite.
Yes. And what you've just created and crafted with these sound bites would be perfect for an email to send, because I am in Nashville and we experienced a snowpocalypse recently where I was without power for 9 days.
Wow.
And so this is a perfect follow-up soundbite email for me where I do have a fireplace. However, my partner and we don't utilize it because it's a it's a wood burning fireplace. And he has some real, he doesn't want us to burn wood in the house. And so like, I would love to convert it to a gas fireplace
100%.
that actually puts out heat. And so that could kind of come in your answer breakdown of, here are 3 different ways that you could solve this problem with this type or this type or this type. We wonder which one would be for you. But here's the main thing you're going to take away from this. You're not going to be cold in a blackout again. Yeah. Like you'll be able to do this. So
Yeah, and it's easy to get self-conscious and think, this is too simple. This is too simple. Hey, this is Tim with the Fire Time Podcast, and I hope you're enjoying this episode. Well, hey, In our final episode of the season coming up, we are going to have a Q&A episode. And so as you've been listening or watching, if there's any questions that you have specifically about your business, what do I do in this situation? Or maybe me or a guest said something that you want clarification on, send those questions in and we'll do everything that we can to make sure that we get to it. You can go to itsfiretime.com/ask. Enter that question, and again, we'll try to answer it the best that we can. Hopefully, this Q&A episode is going to be something that really helps you out. Go to itsfiretime.com/ask to get your question in. I want to transition to talk now about like fear and ego and identity, because I think a lot of bad marketing, it is fueled by insecurity. It really is. Can you speak to how it takes a strong ego to actually just say, no, I'm going to speak really simply, even though I could go really complicated. Can you talk about how ego, fear and identity play into this?
Oh my goodness. Well, this is one of my favorite topics because so many times I will sit down with someone, and even just today I was running a coaching group. And I was like, what's your 2-word check-in? What are you coming in to this time together today? And the woman was like, I'm having an identity crisis. I don't know what I want to say. I don't know what problem I solve for people. I don't know. And that inner turmoil really keeps people from moving forward. And it's important to negotiate the internal struggle that we have so that we can pick things, try them out, and just see what works. A lot of people, myself included, I've got a part of me that really wants me to get things right all the time. It is very scared that we might do it in the wrong way. And it comes up a lot in my life. Not just in messaging and marketing, but just in my regular life. It wants me to do everything perfectly. And that is because of my background and my growing up. And of course, I'm going to have a part that acts that way. It's young. It thinks, we're back in 2nd grade, not doing something correctly. And it's afraid for us. And so I have to learn to turn towards those parts as my adult self and go, don't worry, everything's going to be all right. And if you need anything, I'm here. I can help provide you with what we need. And we don't have to get it exactly right, because there really is no right or wrong here. There's a framework we can use to help us move forward and pick something and see how it lands. How does it land for us? How does it land for other people? And so that's speaking from my experience with just this one part of me that comes up a lot. Yeah. But there's a myriad of different parts. There are parts that are really mean to people, and that they come in really harsh, and they're a critic, right? And they go, ugh, what you've written is terrible. And that's somebody else's voice. That's not your voice. Your voice is nice and kind and wonderful to yourself. But I, just getting curious about, where are those other things coming from, turning towards them, giving them what they might need, and then moving forward in our adult selves that know, hey, I understand what you're going through, offering compassion and guidance and kind of becoming your own guide in your own internal world. It's a lifelong journey, Tim.
It is for sure. But what you're saying is self-awareness is the ingredient, right? And I think that it's one of the hardest things for anybody to grow in. But I resonate with this so much. I think that being more self-aware, just from a strictly business perspective, forget everything else, it will make you a better salesperson. It will make you a better marketer. But it's because I think that when people are self-aware, A, they take themselves less seriously, and B, they're just a lot more pleasant to be around, and they're not a threat to other people.
Yes. Well, threats are exactly the name of the game. And whenever you sit down to write something, oh my goodness, it's just an invitation for parts to come up and have a say, right?
Yep.
And so we really do. We have to become a really good negotiator. And that is one of the parts of being a great guide. And we also, it's great to be aware that when somebody is telling us something, in a sales scenario, that I'm likely to speaking to one of their parts if they are carrying that fearful energy.
Yeah.
And what does that part of them need in this moment to kind of de-escalate this situation and go, oh, there is no threat here. We're okay. We're on the same team. The thing I'm doing, it might be putting pressure on some sort of part that is feeling threatened in this moment. How can we de-escalate and come to a spot where, I can constantly come back in and offer that empathy again? That's really one of the keys here, is having empathy for whatever's going on inside of myself, and then having empathy for whatever I'm noticing is going on inside of the person opposite me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think empathy is so critical. Again, it's critical to sales, it's critical to marketing. And the reason is because it's critical to relationships. Someone who has no empathy is like a megalomaniac or a psychopath, truly. Like if people cannot empathize with someone else, it really makes relationship virtually impossible. And so again, like in the business sense, we always need to be empathetic towards our customers. And that does come with self-awareness. I told the story earlier this season on the podcast, but maybe 3 years ago, I flew out for a big sales meeting with a company. It was me and a friend who I work with. And I just bombed in this meeting. It went terribly. And what happened is I realized afterwards, I was talking with my friend about it, and he was like, Tim, what happened to you in there? He's like, you just started talking about yourself. And I realized, oh man, it's so tempting for me when I'm not sure of the environment to seize the power dynamic. That was what I did. And I will never forget that he was so gracious to give me that feedback. And since then, that's been on my radar, don't take the power. Don't take the power. But it's hard because that's my tendency to do. And I think since then, that sale actually ended up coming through 9 months later or so, which was really cool. But there's all these things inside of us that help shape our identity, good or bad. And that comes out in sales and it comes out in marketing.
That's right. That's right. And having the clarity from your friend, an outside perspective to say, oh, hey, what was going on there? I noticed this is not your usual.
Yeah.
And so you being like, oh, you're right. Oh, and I stepped in this instance, and that is likely to happen again if I am not aware of it. And that inner clarity of, oh, I do this whenever this little stimulus happens. And we have to give ourselves grace because, and knowing okay, the stimulus has happened. How can I decrease the amount of time before I respond? So that way I'm giving myself a moment, a beat
100%.
To be able to go, let me choose a different way of doing things than I normally would do.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's why, again, whenever I teach sales, I always start with this. And I think it's true for marketing as well. But I feel like it's so easy to, when you go to a sales training, it's like, well, I'm going to teach you how to overcome the objective. I'm going to teach you how to win the upsell. And I always start out by saying hey, if you're here for this, that's a different class. I'm not sure what class that is. It's not this one. The definition that I like to use of sales is communicating wisdom to bring someone to the point of a decision. That's what it is, And I think that marketing is similar. It's if we're doing this right, we're trying to communicate wisdom and we're trying to bring someone to the point of a decision. And it's well, hey, for now, we live in a free country, for now. And so people can say no if they want, that's fine.
Yeah.
If they want to say no, that's okay. My job is not to make them say yes with my marketing. My job is to bring them to the point of a decision with the wisdom that I can provide.
That's right. And this peace framework, it's applicable in marketing scenarios and in in-flight sales scenarios. Because if I can get somebody to articulate their problem to me and then I repeat it back to them in a way that they're like, yep, this person gets it, they are so much more in a spot to listen to now what is the answer and does that sound like something I would want for myself? Not that this person is trying to make me do it, or like nobody wants to be coerced or manipulated like we were talking about before. And so having this peace framework installed just in my operating system means I can use it on the fly in a conversation as well. I'm curious if that has been your case as well.
Oh, 100%. Like, yeah, if I'm in a conversation and I hear something, oftentimes, like I may not be able to put the whole peace framework together in a half second in my brain, but there might be one part of it where it's like, oh man, there's a statement of empathy I can give right here. Or, you know what? I can explain what the end result is going to be. And I have found that, like, and it goes back to like repeated words and phrases. Like when you have easy to understand and easy to memorize things that you say, people listen because they're easy, right? Versus like you talked about at the beginning, like speaking way over their head.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so powerful to just have a framework. This is not the way to do marketing, because marketing, it covers so many different layers and there's so many levers to pull as it relates to it. And it is a helpful thing to have a framework that you can play within the boundaries of to try to figure out, okay, what's my starting place for saying this? And I always want my starting place to have a low cognitive load to make someone's brain go, I know exactly what they're saying, so that they can make a decision to be like, oh yeah, this is for me. That I want to make things a no-brainer for them, really.
Yeah. And the purpose of the framework, like you said, you're putting lines on the court so that we know what game we're playing. Without that, like, we're spinning off into nothingness. And I think that honestly, there's a lot of marketing companies that come into businesses and say, hey, we're going to help you tell your story, because we help a lot of businesses tell their story. And they might be able to make something that looks really, really nice and fancy, but it's the emperor's new clothes, right? There's nothing actually there except a bunch of wasted money. But the reason I think companies pay it is because A, they don't know what to do, and B, it caters to the ego.
Yeah.
Like if a marketing company puts together something that is completely self-serving to the business, it feels really good to look at it and go, oh yeah, we really are the innovators. Oh yeah, we really do it better than anybody else. But that's not what your customer cares about.
No. Well, and it's the easy thing to do because it's the seat we're sitting in. Again, it's that role reversal skill. Not everybody has it. And we haven't been taught it. That's why, we sit in our seat inside of our body and we are we. And the more we can practice switching roles and going, okay, I'm not going to think about this from my spot. I'm going to think about it from the customer's spot. That skill set of switching over there, oh my gosh, it's one of the most undervalued skills I think that there is in marketing.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, like, what does it look like if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, like, I want to lead with clarity. Like, I want to speak in like ways that are effective, like for my team and for my customers. What does it look like to do that?
Oh, it looks like play. I want you to play with the framework, not an assignment that you have to do and that you have to try to go out and just crush or anything. And if you're a person who is able to do that, amazing. Like, that's so cool. And I want there to be an element of, like you were saying before, Tim, not taking it so seriously. Because I'm a person that takes things very seriously.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I take having fun too seriously.
I know. I have been accused of being a little too competitive at times.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want it to be playful. I want it to be fun. I want it to be like an experiment that you're like trying out. What about this works for me? And then once you start playing, I also want you to notice what's coming up inside of you. Is there fear? Is there a part that's coming up and saying, excuse me, I don't know if we should do that? Or excuse me, I don't. Ooh, yeah. What is it? And just notice what is coming up inside of you. Any part that's having some sort of agenda or a message that isn't full of confidence, that isn't full of courage, that isn't full of compassion, that isn't full of, all of these really juicy C words, calm and creativity and curiosity, like that place inside of us where I love to tap into that's an essential ingredient to every human being. And when we can get over to that spot, that's really where clarity also lives, and it allows us to move forward. But anything that's internally happening that might be calling out or making us hesitate or whatnot, it's got some sort of message for us. And so the first step is just to notice what's coming up and then to just get curious about it and start turning towards those parts and going, whose voice is that? Where did that come from? What is the history of this for me? And that will really help you start forming a relationship with that part inside of you so that you can negotiate and move forward together.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, like this is kind of becoming like a little bit of like a psychology session that like, if we want to have effective marketing, we have to know what's pulling our levers, Otherwise, like we're going to project all kinds of things on our customers and frankly, just from a leadership perspective, on the people within your company if you're not in touch with that. And I think that fear is a really big one. And I want to close out here. You mentioned that like as you start, again, even like thinking about like, okay, let's craft this marketing message. Let's ask, okay, what's the problem of our customer? How can we show empathy? There is fear that pops up. And I think fear is, it can be good, it can be bad. It's not the all-defining thing. How should we think about fear as business owners and leaders, and how can we move past it?
Well, I'm always starting with curiosity for me, because curiosity really opens me up to figuring out what could be going on. Because a lot of the times, whenever I've got a part that comes up that's giving me fearful vibes, there are some other parts that come in really strong, and they might have polarized ways of doing things. They might be like, we're going to go all in on this. And then there's another part that's like, we're not spending any money and we're not shipping any of this material out until we've got it exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh dear, now I've got these protective parts coming in with ideas on how we should handle it, but there's something underneath those protectors that have come up that needs my attention, that's telling me something, and it needs something from me, most likely. And so it's that curiosity of, can I go within and find out what this part needs to tell me?
Yeah.
That turning towards it is so difficult at times, because a lot of the time those parts feel like us. It feels like the adult version of us.
This is me. This is
me. But it's not. It's typically something that's happened in our past that is showing up again and being like, remember when this happened? We're never letting this happen again.
Yeah. Remember when you were hurt. Remember when you were embarrassed.
Don't even think about going down that road again. And so then these protectors show up and they're like, well, maybe we should handle it like this time or this time. And they're acting either proactively on behalf of us, or they're firefighters. They're coming in and they're just like trying to put out that feeling as quickly as possible. And of course, I know your audience knows so much about fire, right? And so it's so great just to notice these protectors coming in and managing on our behalf or firefighting on our behalf, and then finally being able to get to know what is it that they're protecting, what part of us from the past needs us to update it and be like, oh, hey, look at all of the decisions that we've made from our adult self that have really worked out. What do you need in order to move forward? Oh, do you just need some love? Do you need to not attend some of these sales calls that I'm doing because they're scary for you and you'd rather be doing something else? And of course, if there are some people listening, all of this that I'm saying is based on internal family systems. This is this therapy modality that I've become obsessed with, similar to becoming obsessed with the Storybrand framework. So they really, I'm just amazed at how much internal work to find clarity and external work to find clarity. It just all is going hand in hand.
Yeah, April, this is so good. Again, like if we want to be effective with our messaging, with our marketing, with our communicating, we have to know ourselves, we have to know our customers, and we have to be the guide. It's not about us, right? We're helping them overcome a problem. And if we can understand those things, I think we can come up with some really good material that actually helps make things better. So this has been absolutely amazing. If people want to find you and work with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, April_Sunshine_. And so you can just slide into my DMs.
Awesome. Well, this has been so good. Thank you for being on the show today.
Tim, thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with April Sunshine Hawkins. Like I said up front, it was amazing to get to chat with her. And, the first time I met her was about, I think it was 8 years ago in Seattle at a Storybrand workshop that Donald Miller was putting on. And I was really impressed by just her knowledge of how to craft words and how to really speak to the heart of things. And it was really cool that she joined us for that conversation. Thinking about it, like big picture, zooming out, I don't think that we can talk enough about the fact that if we want to create a message that lands with people, if we want to have effective marketing, we have to make the customer the hero. It cannot be about our business. And this is hard to do. Like, there's a lot of marketing companies that will say, well, hey, we need to tell your story. Like you've got a great story to tell here. And the whole thing is like, if a company is saying that, run, because it might make you feel really good. It will not resonate with your customers. And the reason is really simple, is that when we wake up in the morning, we are the hero of our own story. And I'm not saying by that we are selfish and we don't like other people and we're egotistical, but I am saying that when we wake up in the morning, we're thinking about our lives. Hey, I've got these hopes, I've got dreams, I've got kids, I've got soccer practice, I've got pressure and stress. That's the thing that we're thinking about. And we are not looking for another hero in the story. We're looking for an advisor, for a guide that can help us overcome the problems that we have. And when a business positions themselves as an advisor, as a guide who can help the customer overcome their problem and have a better life, the customer wants to deal with them because they're not looking for another hero. They're looking for a guide who can help. So when we craft our messaging around this, not making the focus on us, but the focus on, hey, we understand your problem. We've helped a lot of other people overcome it. And here's what your life can look like on the other side. When that shift happens, it's incredibly powerful. And once you see, oh, that company's making themselves the hero. Once you see it, you can never unsee it. And all of a sudden you start to see like, oh, that's why that ad didn't work. That's why I don't resonate with this. It's because companies make themselves the hero. So, we've talked about that quite a bit, but I really think that what April talked about with the power of the peace framework, it's something that we need to pay attention to. And for me, this is a framework that I use If I'm teaching a class, if I'm giving a presentation, I'll create a piece framework and think, okay, who's the audience? What's the problem they're experiencing? Okay, how can I show them empathy as someone who understands what they're going through? All right, what's the answer that I can provide through this class? Maybe if I'm teaching a class about the sales process, the answer is adopt a sales process. Whatever it is, what's the change that you experience after saying yes to the answer? And finally, what does the end result look like of how is life different on the other side? So this has been really helpful just for myself. I've been using the Storybrand principles for, almost 10 years now. This piece framework is a little bit newer, but it's really, really nice and helpful for any kind of communication. And again, like with marketing messaging, if you have a product or a service, like create a piece framework for it. Who's the customer that this product is for? Maybe you offer like fireplace, repair. Okay, cool. Create a piece framework for fireplace repair. Create a piece framework for buying a gas insert. Create a piece framework for the chimney side of your business. It's something that really does make a difference. And as you repeat these sound bites over and over and over, this really does start to create branding. You want these sound bites to be something memorable that you say again and again and again on the tagline of your website, on your business card, striped on your van. You want to have it in your Google advertising. This is what will really draw people in. So it was really cool to speak with April about that. And I hope that it's something practical that you can take away and start using. The final bit of our conversation, I think, is really important as well. This idea of how ego and fear and insecurity actually plays into our marketing and our communication. I know for myself that for the first number of years in my career, I was so insecure about myself and what I knew, and I guess really what I didn't know, that I tried to compensate for it in a lot of different ways. And this comes out in marketing. When the more that a company has to talk about themselves, in a lot of ways, the more insecure they are with their product, with their business, or at least tone deaf to their customers. Tim Rethlick talks about the difference between a big ego and a strong ego, right? If you want to see a big ego, right, just look to Washington, D.C. You see a lot of people with big egos that are really insecure and afraid and not able to actually talk about what's really going on because of how big and inflated their ego is. If it gets poked at all, they just lash out. But a strong ego can take a back seat. An ego that is strong enough to say, yeah, I don't need to be the hero. I don't need the attention and the spotlight. I'm actually more concerned about your well-being than mine. A strong ego is truly what creates good marketing. And we have all worked for someone that, due to fear and due to insecurity, has not been able to communicate or relate to people in a way that is helpful or productive. And I would argue, and April would too, that if you want to create effective messaging, it actually does take some self-reflection to ask real questions of, hey, who is this for? What problem does this solve of theirs? And can my ego handle not talking about me? Or if you're in a room with a bunch of other people coming up with ideas, can my ego handle not being the one with the best idea? We celebrate what somebody else brings to the table because it's genuinely better. I think that these are very real conversations. I mentioned this a few weeks ago in the podcast, that I think that, creating messaging and marketing, it's almost like writing a chorus when you're a band. I used to play in failing punk bands. When you're writing a chorus, it's like there's some people that want their idea to win, and there's other people that want to create the best chorus. And that takes humility to say, hey, there might be an idea that's better than mine, and I'm willing to submit and sacrifice what I thought was good for what's actually better and more effective. And I think that this is very, very true in our marketing. So there's a lot there that is just important for us to understand and realize. I think April just did an amazing job articulating that. At the same time, I talked about ego. There's also fear. There's a fear in putting yourself out. When you create a message, you're kind of putting yourself on the hook. And a lot of people paint by numbers with their messaging, or they, hire a quote unquote expert and do what they say because they're really too afraid to put themselves out there. And there's a real danger in letting your inner critic win over the voice that can actually help somebody. And I think that just whatever side of the spectrum you're on, whether you're like, me, my default is to tend to go to ego. I got to be big. I got to be important, right? That's my default. Maybe your default is not putting yourself out there because of fear. And both of those are not helpful. And truly, the journey, again, I think about the lyric from the punk band Saves the Day. You want to know who I really am? Yes, so do I. Man, that's the journey of our lives, is actually figuring out who we are and truly being in touch with it and okay with it. That's the way that we can actually start to speak from the heart in a way that resonates with people. So I think that, like, top to bottom, this is just a great conversation that, it's helpful for marketing. If you put these frameworks in place, you will see results. It will change the way you communicate. At the same time as that, my hope is that you can think a lot about what's going on in here. Is your ego, your fear, or your insecurity prohibiting you from being able to relate to people and speak in a way that is actually effective? And that takes some humility and some self-awareness to confront. But I have found, as I'm, still on that journey, that it opens up all kinds of possibilities and opportunity that fear and ego and insecurity would never let you take advantage of. So I hope there's something in that conversation that you can take away, because, man, there's a lot there. And I think it really speaks to the heart of the matter. Well, hey, if this podcast today has been a blessing for you and you want to support this show financially, you can do that by going to the website itsfiretime.com/join. That's itsfiretime.com/join. And we are so incredibly thankful to those of you who do choose to support this month in and month out. It's the only reason that this season we've been able to make the upgrade to be on video. It's the reason that we can continue to produce these podcasts, is because of your support. And we're incredibly thankful for it. We do have some awesome rewards if you go to itsfiretime.com/join and sign up to support it. It's our way of saying thank you. We see you and we care about you. And if you're not able to support this podcast financially, that is absolutely okay. We want this to be a gift for you that helps you grow your business so you can create prosperity for yourself and for the people that you serve. So, man, the last 2 weeks, you've heard a lot about messaging and marketing. And I'm going to end with something that Donald Miller says quite a bit. He says that, in our world today, there are a lot of bad and manipulative people that have the microphone. There's a lot that's done in media and marketing to coerce, to keep people afraid, and to keep people angry so that they don't think. That's not what we want, right? This framework, everything we talked about today, that's how we take the microphone back, right? That's how we spread messages that actually give people hope. It's how we spread messages that solve a problem and that make people's lives better. Because as we make people's lives better, dude, it changes everything. So I hope you can create a peace framework this week in your company, and that you can start to see more effective messaging, and that you can really think about, so my hope is that there's something you can put into practice right away from this conversation. Make it about your customer, right? It's not about you. St. Thomas Aquinas says, love is willing the good of the other. I would argue that's what this peace framework does. It's willing the good of the other and helping them solve a problem. Hope you can go create some amazing marketing messages. Go do it. We'll talk again very soon. Thank you for listening to the Fire Time Podcast. To learn more, visit the website itsfiretime.com. Music from this episode was written and recorded by In Bloom out of Portland, Oregon. We thank you for listening to the Fire Time Podcast, where it's never hot enough, slow is fast, and the way to win is to make it so stupidly easy to buy from you that there's no excuse not to. We'll see you next time.